Welcome, everyone. My name is Kevin Karami, the Dean's Chief Brand Ambassador and host of Policy Chats, the official podcast of the UCR School of Public Policy. I will be serving as your host for today's episode alongside my colleague and fellow ambassador, Rayon Kalam. We are delighted to co-MC today's webinar with our distinguished guests, Mr. Jeremy Ortiz and Ms. Ivelisse Peroa. This webinar is brought to you by the UCR School of Public Policy and the Dean's Brand Ambassadors. My peers and I are delighted to host this event and provide this service for the general community. Before we get started, I do want to let our audience know to please post questions through the Q&A feature on Zoom, not through chat. And please feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar, as this is intended to be an open and dynamic discussion. All that being said, I'm honored to introduce our guests. Mr. Jeremy Ortiz is a current Senate press staffer and the Professional Development Director for the Congressional Hispanic Association. Ms. Ivelisse Peroa is a former Senate staffer and currently works as the Director of Government Affairs for FEROC Strategies. Thank you both for taking the time to join us. We truly appreciate it, and we are truly honored to have you both here today. So with all of that said, I'm going to move on to the first question for the episode. Very basic one. What drew you both to public service? What led you to politics and working for the Senate House? And what was one major challenge you faced while trying to reach your position? So let's start with the first part. What drew you both to public service? And Jeremy, do you mind getting us started?
Of course. Well, first off, thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Ivelisse, for joining as well, and the UCR School of Public Policy for hosting this. I personally went to UCR. I'm a Southern California native, and I'm happy to be here today. Like Kevin had mentioned, I am a press staffer. I am the Deputy Press Secretary for Senator Joe Manchin on the Energy and Natural Resources Committee, as well as a board member for the Congressional Hispanic Staff Association. So, what drew me to public service? Essentially it is like what drew me to DC. And, growing up, I've always had this long held love of my family, my community, and my state of Southern California. And I wanted to see how I could help out and learn the inner workings of government. So I really thought the best way to do that would be to come to DC. And since I was young, 23 at the time, I didn't have any major obstacles. I just packed up shop, quit both my jobs, and drove out here, and decided to start interning for my local member of Congress. Just to see, what she's doing to help, my neighborhood and my community.
That's really, really interesting. Ivelisse, would you like to also provide your answer?
Sure. So my name is Ivelisse Peroa. Thank you so much for inviting me to this panel. It's great to talk to other UC students. I have been in Congress for 7 years, and I started my career right after college, actually before college, when I interned in Congressman Ruiz's office and in Senator Barbara Boxer's office. Then I immediately got hired by Senator Boxer, and then I have been working for Congressman Ruiz for the past 5 years or 6 years, and then plus 1 more year working as policy director of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, leading the legislative agenda on behalf of all Latinos across the nation, and leading the caucus with 39 members of Congress and 4 senators. So what got me into public service was exactly that. It's the fact that I wanted to work on a change for my community, because I always say, if you don't like what you see, go ahead and change it, right? I personally was not really, my advocacy style was not one where you would see me in the streets with a sign per se, because but I wanted to do something, and going into public service and joining Congress and working behind the scenes and introducing legislation that were going to change the lives of so many across the nation was my way of doing public service and making a change in the society. So I have been fortunate to work for members of Congress and senators that have been really, really great in that aspect. But I have to say that I am, of course, biased by, toward the Latino community and the Hispanic community, which is why led me to become the policy director of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. And I'm also the former president of the Congressional Hispanic Staff Association, where I served with Jeremy on the board. And all of those roles have been very fun for me, very rewarding, because I felt like I was serving the Hispanic community. So now I am a lobbyist, and I lobby for different companies like Disney, Walmart, Westfield, Gap, Banana Republic, all of those big corporations. And the way that I feel about it is I continue doing my public service because I can make a change within those companies on a different way.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's super interesting. And something that you both mentioned was your background and how it affected your choices. Could both of you maybe dive a little bit deeper in terms of how your backgrounds directly impacted your choices when it came to working on Capitol Hill? Any plans, that you had that maybe aren't connected to Capitol Hill? I know, Ms. Pro, you are, as you mentioned, also a lobbyist. How did your background directly impact the choices you made? And also, did your background, were there any challenges that you had to face that maybe were unique to you because of that? Maybe some disadvantages, or maybe there were advantages. Can you kind of delve into how your background played a role into the decisions and the path that you took? And maybe Ms. Pro, you can get us started with this one.
Sure. So challenges, there have been many. I immigrated into this country when I was 19, not knowing much of English, and I didn't have money for a car. I didn't have money for school. So definitely learning the education system, society, how to drive, all the rules, what a scantron is, very simple little things, was a challenge in and of itself. And not to mention learning how what's going to be my next step, right? Like, how am I going to pay for school, and how am I going to graduate, and how am I going to learn English, and how am I going to prove to my professors that even though I have an accent, which used to be thicker than what it is right now, how am I going to prove to people that even though I have an accent, I am smart, and my opinions matter. So that was a challenge. And then learning the system, figuring out the American society. Many people say, America is like a melting pot or like a salad bowl, but there are some things that all Americans share in common, right? Any person that was born and raised here knows. So, for example, everybody knows who Cesar Chavez is, or Abraham Lincoln, right? Or how Joe F. Kennedy, tragically died, for example. I had no idea who those people were. I had no idea how he had died. I had no idea who was Cesar Chavez, because I also immigrated from Peru, so I had never heard of the guy, had never heard of Selena. So little things like that were another challenge, catching up with the culture and the society. And then my next challenge was, in general, like finding opportunities and, monetary. But I was fortunate enough that the people around me were willing to invest in me and lend me a hand and lift me up. So that is what I try to do every day.
So that sounds really, that's really, really interesting. Mr. Ortiz, would you like to give your thoughts?
Of course. And, many of us have similar stories. Our parents came to the United States looking for a better and brighter future for us. My dad's from Mexico. He came here 30 years ago or so, and before he had us. And I think that really gives us a unique opportunity for many of us who are first generation Americans to be here working in the United States Congress. We get to work on, or at least see up close, the issues affecting our family, our friends, and our community. And I've always believed, as the president recently said, we draw so much of our strength as a nation from our immigrant roots and our values as a nation of immigrants. So I like seeing that everywhere, and seeing these issues up close, and see, how passionate some folks are. They come to DC, they protest, they sit outside with their signs. It's a beautiful sight. One of the challenges I would say I have, and I don't think I've had many challenges compared to other folks, but one of the challenges, I guess, would be coming to DC as a young intern. You know, I was memorized by the sheer amount of people working around me. And, you know, at first it was easy to feel very, very lost, but there are communities like CHASA that organize all these great events like cafecitos and all these in-person events where you're going to meet other people. So as soon as I started interning, I started going to those events and I was welcomed into the CHASA family. In 2019, I've made plenty of great friends who've helped me adjust to the city and adjust to being so far from my friends and my family. Growing up, that 95% of the time I'd be with friends and family. So that would be the biggest challenge is, you know, leaving everything behind to come out here and not being able to have the chance to go back as much and to see everyone, to see my nieces grow up and to, you know, see my family in Southern California and, you know, my family in Mexico as well. Like many of us who have full-time jobs are few and far between now.
Thank you so much for your response. Especially as a first-generation American, I can definitely relate. And additionally, I wanted to thank you both so much for your time taking out of very busy schedules to kind of give public policy students like myself and Kevin a chance to learn from you guys. And so I'll actually be posing your next question. So I really wanted to know what advice would you give to students interested in getting involved in Washington, D.C., be it on Capitol Hill or within non-government opportunities? And whoever would like to respond first, please go ahead.
I'll let you take that one, Ibelis.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. I was just wondering what opportunities might be available to public policy students like me trying to work in Washington, D.C. or just non-government related entities as well.
Non-government related entities.
Sorry, more specifically, non-government opportunities.
Non-government opportunities in Washington, D.C. So those are two very different paths. Mm-hmm. And Capitol Hill is a place where anyone from any major, from any path of life can end up. I know many friends or many colleagues, former colleagues of mine that work on the Hill and they studied communications or they studied marketing or they had a history major or a biology major. One of my close friends had a PhD on biology. So it's magical, sort of magical how that place works that attracts so many people from different paths of life. So I wouldn't say there is one specific way to get to Capitol Hill. If you want to work on legislation, you definitely have to have an interest in public policy. And some people end up in administrative roles, starting from staff assistant, scheduler, executive assistant, and or chief of staff. The policy roles available on Capitol Hill are legislative correspondent, legislative assistant, legislative director, and in committees, you can be a council or a professional staff member. And then we have the communications route, right? That has nothing to do with either path. And I'm sure Jeremy can expand on that. But communications people handle, newspapers and reporters relations and drafting stuff and make everything more juicy for constituent and citizen consumption. So definitely you can study whatever is my message here is you can study whatever you want and still end up in Capitol Hill. But a lot of young students put their feet at the door or their foot at the door. I can't even English still, I'm still catching up on all of these phrases. But you can start by interning. You can intern in a district office. Senators and members of Congress have either state office or district office where you can start working on casework, constituent services, or answering phones, staff assistant, and all of those administrative duties. other opportunities are coming to Washington, D.C. to intern, but a lot of students don't have the funding to pay for DC rent and a plane ticket to come and take, right now it's actually paid internship, but it doesn't pay a lot. So my recommendation would be to apply to certain programs like the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute, or HACU, which is a Hispanic Universities and Colleges Association, or Hispanic Association of Universities and Colleges. And those programs will take you for free. You apply, and if you're selected as part of the program, they pay for your plane ticket, they pay for your housing, they give you an additional stipend, and you get to enjoy and work in one of these congressional offices. The other thing that a lot of people have to consider is the salaries, especially seniors and juniors that are already thinking about their life, their post-grad life. You have to keep in mind the finance is part of it, because even though, let's say you get a great internship program and then you get a full-time job, jobs on Capitol Hill start usually at a very low rate of 32 or 30,000 K, maybe sometimes 28K. So it is not a lot. And on the Senate side, they start at like 37, 35K. So it's important to consider those finances, especially if you have to look after, a child or a dependent or your parents. So go through LinkedIn and try to find people that work on Capitol Hill, that went to your university or your college, or which you maybe have friends in common. If you are given the opportunity to intern in one of these offices, grab coffees with the staff to ask them and pick their brain on how they got there, and about the salaries and the logistics of moving to Washington, D.C., because you're going to learn a lot of that, and you have to consider all of those factors before moving and working here.
Thank you so much for your response. And Mr. Ortiz, if you wouldn't mind answering this question.
I want to piggyback and echo a lot of what Evelisa said. You don't really need to go to school for any specific thing to be in DC. I went for business. I know people have gone for biology. I know people have gone for engineering. Could be anything, as long as you have that passion to come out here, or you have the passion and to love what you do and try to make the trek out here, then and have the financial means to do so, or provided through like things like CHCI in Chile. Try to make that jump. Sorry, I'm not good at speaking, but those internship opportunities are integral. They're critical. You need to be speaking with everybody you can. When I was at UCR, I didn't know anything about internships. Even long after college for a year, I didn't know what an internship was. I didn't really fully grasp how it could help your career and what you could do with it, and so many opportunities it provides. I grew up in a working class household. I had 2 jobs in high school. I had 2 jobs even now. And to me, all my professors did a poor job of explaining of what it was. And there was no outreach on the campus, or none that I saw. And to me, it was just, oh, come do this internship. It's a great opportunity, but you have to have money, or it's free work. It's free work. And, I was working 2 jobs, trying to help everyone pay bills, buy my car, help friends out. And to me, I didn't see a benefit. I didn't see, hey, I should go give up 30, 40 hours a week in free labor or very cheap labor even though it's for something I believe in and care for and love. I shouldn't do that, because I have bigger, fish to fry, bigger obligations to meet. And now looking back on it, that really shouldn't have been my mindset. And what I recommend to all the students to do is chat with your professors, chat with people like myself and Evelise and other leaders in not only in the congressional space, but at your district space, your district office space, and even your local assembly members, the district attorney's office, the mayor's office. Speak with those people, because they want to help you. They want to help you succeed. They want to help their students succeed. I'm sure the Riverside Mayor's office, and the Riverside County government, and the city government want to help UCR students and students from the surrounding area get involved. Another thing is, do what I did. A lot of other folks did this. Just walk into your district office and say, here's my resume. Are there any internships available? You want to do that in DC, but I think it's more appropriate for a district office. Don't quote me on that, but that's always a good thing. Put yourself out there, take a shot in the dark, a step in the dark. And the last thing I want to end on is when you do come out to DC, and as Evelise has mentioned, there are a lot of opportunities. UCDC, which all the UCR students can apply through, CHCI, CHLI, and then similar organizations. Those help provide some money and some monetary support to come out here and house you and similar things. But if you come out here just for an internship that is either paid or low paid or not paid at all, just keep in mind that you may have to get a second job. You may have to work on the weekend. As unfair as that sounds, I think it's something that should be a reality for a lot of folks, and understand that if you don't have the financial means to do so, you might have to get a second job. And I grew up with second jobs my entire life, and I think that you should always have that in the back of your head.
Thank you so much for elaborating on your experience kind of getting to your position. And thank you both so much for responding to that question. And now that we've had some insight on how to kind of get there, what do you guys find as the biggest mistake many students make when looking for internship opportunities? And what advice would you give to students to kind of avoid this? So whoever feels more comfortable answering first.
Go for it, Jeremy.
All right. I would say when you apply for an internship, just don't expect you get it. You're going to get it. Don't expect something that you did, not necessarily that you deserve something, but that you automatically should get something just because you have high grades, or you go to, a prestigious school, or you have a 4.0, or yada, yada, yada. You've been in this club or that club. Everyone wants to get an internship, and everyone should have the potential to do so, but it is very competitive, and just be humble about it. Is the best thing I would say from previous internships and my fellow previous intern colleagues. Be humble and work your ass off.
Thank you so much. And not getting discouraged is definitely something students should value as really, really good advice. So Ms. Perot, if you wouldn't mind answering the same question.
I think let them tell you no. And the way that I mean this is, a lot of the times when I was a student, I denied myself of many opportunities and did not apply because I told myself no. But something I've learned is go ahead and apply and let them tell you no. You don't be the one to tell yourself no, right? Because you never know who might say yes. And that can lead to a great opportunity and a life-changing experience. So for me, for example, I started interning in the Congressman Ruiz's office because a friend of mine was volunteering in his campaign. And when I asked him, I had, the guts to ask him, I don't know why, something in my stomach just told me, go to that guy and ask him how he did it. And I did, and thank God I did, because it changed my whole life. He invited me to volunteer in his campaign, which led me to meet him, and he was a wonderful individual. He ended up becoming one of my mentors. And I applied and I talked to his staff, and then I, expressed my interest in wanting to intern in his office, and he invited me. I applied and I got it. So imagine if in that moment I would have told myself, no, it's embarrassing to ask this guy how he got the opportunity to intern or volunteer in a political campaign, right? Or imagine if I hadn't had the guts to go and talk to the staff or submit that application. So many opportunities go right past you because you don't allow yourself the opportunity to go for it. And I think it's very natural for many young people in the United States. And I noticed that this is slowly changing. So I am so happy this is slowly changing. But a lot of people that come from disadvantaged backgrounds are raised with a mentality of society telling them, you're a minority, therefore you are less than. Much of a change and an impact in a young person's brain that then might lead to so many different missed opportunities. So the change starts with you, and I can tell you, you are not less. We are not less. We are equally smart. We are equally prepared, and you have everything you need that job to go for that interview, and figure out a way to make it work for you. Another thing that I see a lot of people not doing, a lot of young interns not doing, is they don't know, and piggybacking a little bit on what Jeremy said earlier, good grades can only take you so far. The reality is that this town works a lot based on connections and network. And I have learned recently, ever since my brother graduated from mechanical engineering, that a lot of jobs actually are obtained because of the connections and the people that you know, because of our recommendation of someone in your circle. So make sure that, yes, your grades and your at a 4.0 GPA can take you so far, especially if you are considering law school or graduate school. But if your choice is to work after graduation, then make sure that you're also using your capital or investing in your personal connections and your network. And I'm not saying go to all the parties. It's more like invest in your professional network, right? So go to the panels, go to the events where they're featuring professors. Professors are a great resource. Go to their office hours. Nobody goes and they're just waiting for you. And I had professors write strong recommendations for me for my internships. And had it not been for them, then I wouldn't have gotten the opportunities I have. And go talk to the staff, go talk to, if you get a job or something, go talk to people and schedule coffees with them, schedule informational interviews with them, sit down and tell them, I want you to tell me all about, your path in life and how you got there. And only by doing that is that you're going to have, all the tools to be prepared so that when opportunity comes, when preparation and opportunity get together, then that's a life-changing experience.
Thank you so much, both of you. I think that's a really strong message. And I think something that I think, Jeremy, you mentioned earlier, that some students just need a push. They need that confirmation that they can do it. And Ms. Pro, you definitely echo that idea as well. And so I'm really glad that that is a message that you both believe in, and that a lot of students may not have that person in their lives to kind of encourage them to actually try something, even if they don't get it. We do have a lot of audience questions, so I want to make sure that their questions get answered too. So the first one is from an anonymous attendee, and they ask, for someone who does not seek to build their career long-term on the hill, what advice would you say for that person who wants to maximize the amount of resources available? And Jeremy, why don't you get started with this one?
Yeah. So in that case, I would recommend doing a fellowship or an internship as opposed to trying to actually get a job. If you don't have a long-term career set out on the goal, It's similar to any job. If you go anywhere and they ask, "Oh, where do you see yourself in 5 years or in 2 years?" and you say, "Not here," they're not going to want to hire you. But especially so because I'm on a committee, I notice a lot of interns come here. They don't want careers in the long term, but they're here just to learn. For example, let's say you want to get into law. Go intern on the Judiciary Committee in the House or Senate, with whatever party you feel most aligned with. Go intern there for a few months. Go intern there or fellow there for a year if you can. If you're given that opportunity, take advantage of that. And as you're here, build that network, make those friends, build that professional network. That way you could call on those folks when you need help in the future, or when you need honest advice or criticism or anything. So even if you don't plan to do a long-term career on the Hill, there's still so much opportunities to come here to learn from, all these geniuses that are our colleagues here that are experts in their fields, or to learn from, like communications folks. If you want to get into marketing, come learn from a comms staffer in the United States Senate or the United States Congress. So much stuff you could still do here. I'll turn it over to you, Elise.
I'll echo everything you said. I think internship or a fellowship on the Hill looks good everywhere.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We do have another audience question. This one is directed to you, Ms. Peroa, specifically. They ask, "I'm personally very interested in a career in government affairs. Could you discuss the various tasks and activities that are involved in your role?"
Yes. Let me share with you my day-to-day. So for example, I start in the morning reading the news. I try to read the news as much as possible, and also check Twitter, because everybody knows that the best and breaking news are always on Twitter. And then I try to get the most out of political huddle, political playbook, political trade, political tax, political morning money, those newsletters, including Punchbowl News. We also have different platforms such as CQ or Roll Call or Bloomberg Government. And those can be set up so they can flag specific news according to a specific keywords that you said previously. So I then do a series of follow-ups, and I try to keep myself organized by, I have a board, I have a whiteboard in my office, and then I also have sticky notes and spreadsheets where I can track all of my clients and all the projects that I'm doing for all of my clients. So that way I don't forget the big picture. So then I try to do a bunch of follow-ups. Different types of clients want different access to, Congress and Capitol Hill. So then I go into different meetings and I, talk to the client. We advise a strategy for the client, and then we provide them with access to Congress. I would reach out to Congress to relay the priorities of the client, just like we would do like any other constituent. And we devise another strategy. Sometimes it takes some convincing, so you have to be very persuasive, both with the client and with the member of Congress or the senator. And then different strategies vary according to different clients and according to party. And then we get a final product, we get a final, resolution to different issues. We also work very closely with third-party, like group validators. So for example, we work with different nonprofits to make sure that we are highlighting different issues and make sure we are working in conjunction and in a comprehensive way with all stakeholders, and not just, it's not a skewed matter coming from one place and one company or one person. So that is more or less what my day-to-day is like. It does take knowing a lot of people on the Hill, because that is where I work. It does take knowing people in administration, because that's also who I bug. Recently, I had the opportunity to travel to Peru for a client. In Peru, it's where I'm from, so it was really great to go back to my country. And we had different meetings with different stakeholders. And again, so that I can get that, information, go back to Washington, D.C., and with my team and the firm, we can devise a strategy for that stakeholder.
Thank you so much for your response. So our next question actually is coming from one of our audience members. Millie asks, what job would you choose if you didn't do what you currently do now as a career? Specifically because careers in public service seem to be challenging if you can't establish an internship with a senator or Congress member. So, Mr. Ortiz, if you wouldn't mind answering that question.
Yeah. I don't think you need to establish a relationship with either the member or any member of the senior staff to have a successful entry into the Hill. Generally, when you enter as an intern, you meet with a few folks and you get approved or denied. And it's an amazing opportunity. I'm going to keep plugging that everyone should try to do it. Speak with your professors and speak with your local leaders and reach out to alumni like myself, like Evelise. Like there are so many UCR students who I have the pleasure of working, and UC students who have the pleasure of working with on an everyday basis here in government. They're here, they're at the local government, and they're at the White House. They're everywhere. Now, if I didn't do what I did now, if I didn't work in the United States Senate, I'd probably want to work I'd still like to work in politics. I'd like to be like organizer or working on a campaign to help elect more folks, like-minded folks into Congress. I think American democracy works best when everyone feels empowered to get involved and realize that they can better the lives of both themselves and others through active participation in this amazing government we have in this nation. So I would want to, help elevate those voices and help get more people out to vote.
Thank you so much for that sentiment. And if Ms. Pro wouldn't mind answering the same question, please.
I don't know. I always joke that my other dream job is to be a stylist for female politicians. I love fashion, and I would love to dress them up. I would love to dress up Speaker Pelosi, female senators, the new Supreme Court nominee. I would love it. So I think maybe that.
Great. Thank you so much for answering. I think that was a really interesting question as well. We do still have many audience questions, so I want to make sure that we get to them. So the next question I want to ask also comes from Millie. What skills are essential for success in this career? So both hard and soft skills. And maybe we can put an emphasis on specifically soft skills, as those tend to be a little bit more difficult for students to cultivate. Jeremy?
I'm going to have to Google what a soft skill is versus a hard skill real quick. So give me a second. Common skills. So
just to clarify for everyone, they're referring to skills like a hard skill would be something, a soft skill would be something like public speaking or communication, and a hard skill would be something like the ability to
navigate an Excel spreadsheet.
Exactly.
All right. Well, that being said, I would say you need to be a great team player. In offices, you are working in conjunction with not only your staffers, but staffers from across the government. You're working with people in the administration. You're working with people right next door in a different office on either side of the aisle. Could be a Democrat, could be a Republican, could be an independent. You're still working with other people. Plus, you're working with nonprofit groups and lobbyists and things like that. You need to be able to balance everything and be a creative thinker, time management, all the good stuff. But I think the most important thing is being a good writer. I think everybody on the Hill is a fantastic writer. Even if you're not in communications or press, you're still going to be help writing bills as a legislative staffer. You're still going to be emailing folks all day, every day. So you need to be a good writer. And, that skill comes as you keep practicing and practicing and practicing.
Were there any other skills that you wanted to highlight?
Yes, I want to highlight 2 skills. The first one is emotional intelligence and a thick skin. And the second one is writing skills.
Maybe expand on the first one. Why do you think that's an important skill to have? I have an idea of what you're going to say, but I think maybe it'd be interesting if you expand on it.
So I think regardless of what you do, it's important to have a thick skin and self-confidence because, again, many of us, because of the color of our skin or the place where we're from or the religion we practice, are told by society we're less than. So make sure you know that and be confident in your abilities and who you are as a person. And don't let other people define you, and you tell them who you are. Don't let them tell you who you are. And then emotional intelligence, because it is very important to be able to convey the things that you agree on and also disagree on with people. It's important to have healthy conflict because things in different settings and in different careers require working with a team. And when you're working with a team, you are dealing with different types of personalities and different people from different backgrounds other than yours. And we need to make sure that we're conveying those, items in a very respectful and cordial way, because otherwise it's going to be very hard to come into an agreement on something and continue moving forward. So regardless of what you're doing in your career path, I always recommend people to have emotional intelligence. Make sure that you are able to read body language. If someone is not ready to have a difficult conversation, don't push them. If someone is ready to have that conversation, then you might want to approach the subject delicately. Other people have different personalities and they just want more aggressive approach. So just try to be more effective in communicating that and always approaching others with compassion, because you never know what they're struggling with behind closed doors.
Thank you so much for your response and about your advice you imparted about compassion and staying true to your character. More on that, I had a question that actually is asked from an anonymous attendee. They say, as a student, lobbying is very interested in me. Can you expand on lobbying causes and how you choose what you actually want to lobby for?
It depends. It depends on where you want to go. There are multiple firms. There's 2 types of lobbying. There's in-house lobbying, which means that you work internally and you are part of a specific company or corporation. And then there's multi-client lobbying, which is what I do. And multi-client lobbying means that you work for a firm and you have exactly that, multiple clients at the same time. And you're devising a strategy for multiple clients at the same time. So both of them are different dynamics. I enjoy multi-client lobbying a lot because it allows me to learn different subjects from different clients and their needs. And that is very exciting to me. I never get bored. I always try to come to work, with an enthusiasm of, oh, I wonder what today will bring. I wonder what I'm going to learn about. I wonder who I'm going to get to talk to today. And whereas I personally don't have experience with in-house lobbying, but that is more for folks that would prefer to focus on one specific lane or niche and would prefer to learn everything there is about that company or that specific issue area and then go from there.
Thank you so much for your response. And if Mr. Ortiz wouldn't mind answering the same question, please.
I'm gonna defer this all to you, Elise. I don't really know anything about lobbying, if I'm being honest. All I could say is if you decide to go that lobbying route, just remember that your connections are important, and even more so as a human being, always remain kind and always remain courteous. I've never had a bad interaction with any of my friends or colleagues who are lobbyists, but I don't really know anything on this issue area, so I apologize.
No, please don't apologize. Thank you so much. Kevin will be posing the next question.
Yeah, we actually do have a few more audience questions. I think this one's a really important one for students specifically, and I know we're focusing on students right now. So this question is from Naomi. She asks, while you were busy in your careers as students, what is the best way to manage your time with work, scheduling informational interviews, and also applying to internships while handling other necessary work and deadlines? So the main theme of the question is time management when you're handling class, internships, work, real life responsibilities. What advice do you have for students on that? And Jeremy, maybe you could go first.
Right. Well, that's a tough one because I struggle with time management. I think a lot of folks do. I don't think it's unique to this job. I think it's unique. I think it's a broad category that covers everyone. For myself, I've been really dead set on writing in a journal, writing what I have done all day. And when I get up in the morning, trying to write what I want to accomplish for the day and create a checklist. Still very tough. I have a second job and I work with my friends that I really love. I study. I have a tutor from the LSAT that I want to take. And of course, I'm on the board for CHASA and try to get as much coffees as possible with interns and junior staffers. So that checklist really does help. And I think that's important. And also realizing that some days you may need to, work 18, 19 hours a day on things that you want to accomplish that you need to get done. Other days you need to learn to take like a weekend off to yourself, enjoy it with your friends in the company of your family, or even if that means you're sitting all day watching Netflix, take those off days. But I think that's it. It's still tough for me to do that, but I know each of us are going to accomplish it in our own unique ways.
Ms. Pro, do you have any thoughts on time management?
In college, I had a journal or an agenda. I don't know, when I translated from Spanish to English, it's agenda, but I think here they call it like a monthly journal. And it's basically a calendar where you see the whole month. And on each date, I would put what assignments and what papers I had due. I know that some people put it on their iPads or their phones, on their calendars on their phones. I am a tech person. I'm not that old, but I prefer writing it down. It just works better for me. Also, sticky notes when I know that I'm going to forget something. I prefer to have it in a sticky note where I see it every day. And then I don't forget, because I am a very, very, very forgetful person. Everybody in my family, all my friends tease me about that. Like, oh, you talk about something with Elise, you have to have her sign a contract or a paper because otherwise she's not going to remember. That's true.
Thank you so much for sharing. And actually, I had a follow-up question specific for Mr. Ortiz, and more specific to your work at CHASA, or the Congressional Hispanic Staff Association. So I was just curious about what work the organization actually encompasses, and if you could elaborate a little bit more about your specific role there.
Absolutely. I'm gonna elaborate further, if it's okay by Eva Elise. She was the president and a vice president of the organization. So I'd like her to take the lead on this, and I will come back and explain what my role is.
Of course, if Miss Eva Elise
If that's fine.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind going first.
Do is to uplift and advance the professional lives and opportunities for the Hispanic community on Capitol Hill. That means that we put together different events. We have a mentorship program where we connect you with a senior staffer or someone from outside of the Hill that works in lobbying or nonprofit world or trade association, work. And we connect you with, a younger staffer so that they're able to have a mentor. We organize different types of professional events where we prepare staffers on how to introduce a bill, I think when I was president, Jeremy led one that was how to interact with reporters, and it was catered to communications staffers. We also plan social events, which are super fun. This year, back in July, we planned a reception in a rooftop of a beautiful building overseeing the Capitol Dome. And we had hors d'oeuvres, and it was just a fun time for all of us to get together and bond. And that also creates genuine friendships, which later lead to genuine connections that are going to be able to, help you as you climb up the ladder of professional success. And then we also have a resume bank, and that is part of, I would say that 60% of the job that we do, we help people get jobs. So we have a placement person that works with a professional development person to make sure that not only the staffers are prepared professionally, but also that they hear about the jobs that many times are not publicly available. So we have a resume bank and also a jobs announcement bank where we put all of the positions that we know of in there, and usually someone on the board or on the placement committee has a connection with that office or position. And then if a member wants to apply, they can come to us and say, hey, I'm actually applying to this job in the office of Senator blah, 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 or, Congresswoman X, Y, and Z. And maybe one of us will say, oh, actually, I know the chief, I know the legislative director, let me refer you, let me flag your resume for you. And we do it, and we flag it, and we send that resume. And that way we help our own community to be flagged and to be on top of a pile over the rest of applicants. We also do different types of cultural events, such as, different panelists of renowned public figures in Washington, D.C. and the nation. So, for example, we had a speaker series with Jorge Ramos, the journalist from Univision, the one that stood up to President Trump in a press conference. We also had Janet Murguia, who is the president of Unidos US. We had Rosario Dawson, who is the actress and activist. We try to create awareness about Afro-Latinos, Afro-Hispanics, and Afro-Latinx individuals on Capitol Hill by connecting them with panels and highlighting their stories. And the same thing with LGBTQ plus Hispanics on Capitol Hill. So we try to make sure that we are creating an inclusive and intersectional diversity on Capitol Hill.
Absolutely. I'll piggyback on that. You know, CHASA, our main goal is to recruit, retain, and advance Hispanic staffers in the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. And to do so means, at least in my eyes and in my role as professional development director, is facilitating those connections and hosting events, be it with comms professors, chiefs of staff, and ledge directors, and all the branches, trying to get folks more involved in their position, try to get them promoted, and get them hired as well.
Thank you both so much.
Yeah, I know we're cutting close on time, so if you have any final questions.
Yeah, so I did want to ask one last question, if you could both very, very briefly answer, since I know you're both super busy. If there was one message you could leave students after this event, and students who watch the recording that goes up, what would it be? Jeremy, you could go first.
Okay. Like a staring game. Who's going? All right. If I could leave one message, I would say, each and every one who are deserving of coming to the Hill or working in your district office, our democracy functions best when it looks like how the country looks. Please try to get in touch with your local offices and try to get an internship. Don't be afraid and take that shot in the dark. And in doing so, understand that networking and the people and connections are among the most important things, not only on the Hill, but in life in general. So take that shot in the dark, take that chance. And also while doing so, please reach out to others. Please reach out to me. Please reach out to you at least. Please reach out and try to facilitate conversations that will help advance yourself, not only as a student, but in your career and your goals.
Ms. Peroa, do you have any final remarks?
Yes, I always like to end opportunities like this to say my favorite phrase, and I have a pin engraved with this phrase, so I'm not lying. Carry yourself with the confidence of a mediocre white man. That's it. No offense and no hits to white men. The love of my life is a white man, and many of them are great, but many of them are also in positions where probably they shouldn't be. So make sure that you carry yourself with that confidence and you'll go far in life.
Great, and thank you both so much. It was an honor to have you both on today, and I think that is an amazing note to leave us on. And thank you to our audience for joining us today. We really appreciate it. You can learn more about other events hosted by the UCR School of Public Policy like these by visiting our website, svp.ucr.edu. Additionally, you can also learn about our Master of Public Policy program, as well as our new combined BA and VP program. Mr. Ortiz and Ms. Peroa, it was an honor to have you both on today. We had a really, really good time talking to you. I wish we could speak more, but I know you're both very busy. And thank you again for our audience for joining us, for being with us today. We look forward to seeing all of you at future SPP events soon. And until then, goodbye. Appreciate it.